This is Monday Motorsport with Lester Forbes on Motorsport Radio.
Hello and welcome. My name is Lester. This is Monday Motorsport live on Motorsport Radio, motorsport.radio. Place to be every Monday night, usually, because we'll be here debriefing basically everything that happened over the weekend in motorsport. Coming up tonight, we have an all-star panel of experts. Yes, I'll get to those in a moment, though. But your comments or questions regarding yesterday's touring car event at Knockhill is what we will be mostly talking about tonight. With the absence of F1, well, we can sort of talk about anything you want, to be honest, but with the BTCC fresh in mind, we thought we'd kick off the start of the show. And to help me do that, please welcome onto the show our two expert analysts, or panellists, for tonight. It's Dan Marr and Dan McCarthy. Hi, guys.
Good evening.
Hello. How are you doing?
Well, Dan and Dan, yeah, it's going to get a little confusing for me, I suppose. What should I call you both? Dan McCarthy and Dan Marr?
It doesn't help.
You can't call us Dan M because we're both that as well, so it's going to be a difficult one for you tonight.
It is. I'll call you Dan McCarthy. And
that's not even going to work, because it's still
you're not Dan McCarthy, shut up. Right. Okay, Dan McCarthy, how are you? How's things? Good to see you back.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. The commentary stuff is starting to roll in a little bit. I'd made my motorsport commentary debut a few months ago.
Yes, you did.
Club
rave
event.
Reviews.
Club event at Alton Park towards the end of May, and it was a bit of a shock to get it. It was, I'm going to say, it was quite tricky sitting at the Knickerbrook commentary box with no timing screens in front of me. So, bit of a baptism of fire, but it was all the good fun anyway.
He did so well, they even invited him back for some reason. So there you go.
Yeah, I think I avoided embarrassment.
Yeah, everyone makes a good first impression, I suppose, and that's exactly what you did. So yeah, well done, and it'll be good to hear you back on commentary wherever, doing whatever, whether it's motorsport or football, because I know Dan McCarthy is very into his football commentary as well. So yeah. Keep an ear out for that. Dan Marr is also here.
Somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Dan, back again. Dan Marr, back on the show once again to tell us about what he's been up to at the weekend.
Well, just sitting in front of a television watching a British touring cars, unlike most weekends when I seem to spend it with you, going to, video people and entertain people, I was at home, that was good.
Okay. Fair enough. Excellent. Well, let's begin by talking about the touring cars that were at Knockhill at the weekend, and I know we'll get to some of the support races as well later on. Maybe talk about some F4 and certainly some Porsches as well, and maybe even some Ginettas. Who knows, if we've got time. But just to prove that we are live, incidentally, if you want to chip in with some comments during the show, you can do so. It's at MSport Radio on Twitter and Motorsport Radio on Facebook, and you can even leave us a comment in the live comments box as well. So, literally we'll react to whatever you're saying. If you have any good or bad comments, or want to disagree with what Dan McCarthy and Dan Marr have been saying, then you're more welcome to do, and even what I've been saying as well. So that's fine. So then, the 50th pole position for Jason Plato. It's hard to imagine that he's not had more, to be honest, Dan McCarthy.
Yeah, it is really. I think currently from this year, it's been a real struggle for him from the start of the season. He's not really been able to perform in the Subaru car. Pretty strange considering the great form that Ash Sutton's been in. He's probably propelled himself to be the championship favourite now if he continues the good form. But midway through the season, it looks like he's finally managed to crack it, and it was a great effort in qualifying. It's a hard track to qualify at, is Knockhill. When you've got 32 cars going round a lap as short as that one, it's hard to be able to get the space, but he managed to find it, and he put in a good lap to qualify on pole.
Yeah, certainly, and also Dan Marr, Jason Plato, said that they've now apparently found the problem, whatever it was, and it apparently turned out to be an issue with the diff. He was quoted, Jason Plato was quoted as saying that it was, albeit a very small issue that they found in the data, but they managed to fix it, solve it, and now, according to Jason Plato anyway, it's like a completely different car. So not, perhaps, a Duff chassis, as I think you'd suggested previously.
Well, I can't remember what I suggested previously, so I'll just say yes, probably. So, but small tweaks to the differentials do make a big amount of difference. Obviously, the way they're inherently designed and set up, obviously it can either promote roll through the car or not really promote roll through the car. It's basically, it helps with the movement, the actual point of inertia. It's designed to help that, really. So small tweaks do make a big difference. And if it was damaged, you're not going to see, you don't really look at the diff and a lot of the bits of the drivetrain underneath the car too much when you think, you can easier to say, well, the chassis seems to be so that was potentially what they thought the issue were. Anyway, we can't quote Jason Plato now. But also, he was quite funny at the weekend actually. But it's good to see they've managed to fix the problem. It was a small anomaly. They looked at it. They said, "Yeah, it works now." And he does seem to be much more confident. The car just seems to be much more aggressive. It does seem to be more Plato, not not sort of this limp car that we've had for the past couple of rounds for him.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. It does seem to be more Plato in that it was Plato on pole position and back to his best, seemingly. Although it wasn't as straightforward as perhaps the record books might make out for his 50th pole position, because it was a very, very, very chaotic qualifying session. Anybody watched it live or watched highlights of it the following day would have seen that it was a very fast drying track, and it was it was kind of madness, really, and it'd been described as being a lottery that anybody could have took pole position. I think Tom Chilton was on pole at one point. Minutes later, he ended down like in 18th and 19th place. So
18th, just 2 minutes remaining, which shows how desperate the teams were. They were just scrambling around to try and put dry tyres on the cars in the pit lane, and then they were going out and trying to record lap times as quick as possible because the time was running out, and they would have paid otherwise.
Well, yeah, that's perhaps as well part of the reason why Jason did manage to get his 50th pole position in his career, because I think he switched tyres, came into the pits at the last minute, did an old-fashioned sort of quali lap. Amazing, really, in qualifying. But yeah, and it worked for him, so fair play, I suppose. That was his 50th pole position. And I've been looking at the stats as well, guys. The 50th pole, which he's on 96 wins according to BTCC.net right now. Which still is, of course, he is the most successful driver in the history of touring cars in terms of race wins. 96 wins versus, I think he's on 531 races in total in the BTCC. Again, this is according to right now, as of Monday night, the official touring car website. So if that number's not entirely correct, that's where I got that from. Blame them. But yeah, 18.079% of all his races have resulted in a win. Pretty impressive, no? Yeah?
It's not bad, is it?
Nearly a 1 in 5 statistic, so I'd certainly take that if I was in his shoes.
There you go. And 86 fastest laps, apparently. So that was not bad. So yeah, well done for Jason Plato, and many asking on some of the Facebook touring car groups as well. Is he back now? Is he back for good, Dan Marr?
We'll wait and see. Knockhill is a very good circuit for the rear-wheel drive cars. Obviously, we're Rockingham next, which should be an interesting one. Theoretically, it could suit the Subarus, but of course, the MG with the longer wheelbase and the VWs with the longer wheelbase can go much better around there because of the longer corners. Of course, the Hondas are going to be back in the mix well and truly for the next meeting. The Ford Focuses as well, they'll be relatively competitive as well, I can imagine. So it's going to be an interesting one in terms of who's going to be where. But for Jason, maybe it will do. But we've got to wait and see, because we're going to have to see now that Ashley Sutton is right in with the title championship battle. Jason's not going to take it lying down. He's not going to give way for the easiest. He's not going to give way purely because he's Jason Plato, but it's going to be how the team starts skewing themselves for a title tilt with Ashley Sutton.
And same question to you, Dan McCarthy. Is Plato back to his best? Are Subaru now potential? Well, I'm talking about Plato anyway. Is he in with a chance for the title?
I'm in agreement with Dan. Really, I think only time will tell if he is back to his best. He's got to perform consistently well, up to the standards that Ash Sutton set for the rest of the championship for him to be really back at his best. As for his championship chances, I wouldn't give him any shout really of taking the title. I think it's taken too long for him to get near the front of the grid. It's his first race win. It's the first meeting really where he's looked close to winning in this Subaru car, so I wouldn't say that he is back to his best. And I think an interesting point what happened at the weekend is that the Subaru side, they're starting to go with the team orders again in the second race towards the end. They actually messed it up because they tried to let Ash Sutton lead a race to gain one extra point, and then they'd give Jason the lead back, but they did that one lap too late, so he didn't eventually get that point. Did Ash Sutton? Jason Plato just kind of stayed in front for the race win, and someone with the competitive nature of Jason Plato, I don't think he'll be too happy playing second fiddle to anyone, regardless of how far ahead they are in the championship.
Well, he was asked, interestingly, you make a good point there, Dan McCarthy. He was asked by, I think, the ITV crew before, I think, race number 1, whether he would play perhaps second fiddle and let Ash Sutton through to at least lead a lap, or maybe even win the race to enhance his title chances. And he pretty much put a massive stop on any suggestion that would happen like you said, they kind of messed it up as well, the old switcheroo. But interesting. Dan Marr, what overall though in race number 1, what did you sort of make of it? It wasn't was it? It's hard to remember back now, but I can't remember if there were too many massive incidents. I can't recall any.
No, race 1 was relatively quiet compared to what was going to come up even a couple of hours later. Obviously, as you said, the switch around between Plato and Sutton, that was a little bit touch and go. Obviously, what was said at the time was that Jason, they let him through, but of course he didn't let him through over the timing line. It was over the start-finish line. So, of course, because they're in two different places, so that could be why he missed it. Although, again, be a cynic and say he didn't deliberately want to do it. That's fair enough. If he didn't. He did let him through. Yeah, I suppose it was more a mistake than anything. But the record books say that Jason took the victory. Ashley Sutton was second. So they tried their best. They both drove well. It was a good effort, and it's an interesting one actually, because the BMWs were really strong over the course of the weekend as well. 2 or 3 different podiums for them. So they're doing really well in the Manufacturers' Championship. And of course, Colin Turkington is leading the championship. So it must have been difficult for Ashley Sutton, who couldn't really shake off the Turkington and Collard battle too well during the course of the race, or any of the races really. But it's going to make for an interesting dynamic come the end of the season, of course, because we've got Turkington right up there in the mix against Sutton. Gordon Shedden's not going to be too far back as well. But it was like Plato. We were Mr. McCarthy was saying earlier about Plato being quite far off. It's been like 150 odd points he was off before coming into this meeting. So he's not, there isn't much he can do in terms of the championship battle unless he wins every single race and, everyone doesn't finish. It's feasible. We've seen this happen before in motorsport, but it's highly unlikely. It would be great to see him battling for the championship lead, because this is where we should be seeing Jason Plato, for better or for worse. We've been without him and his sort of character for the best part of half a year. It's a shame that we've not seen him at his best and at his potential, because when he is up there, he really does add a dynamic to the championship, and it did miss it over the course of the first few meetings.
Well, thank you to everyone who's already tuned in to Monday Motorsport on Motorsport Radio, and especially if you've done so via our website, motorsport.radio. You're more than welcome to join in the show and join the website as a listener and get the inside line on all the latest gossip that we get from the paddock. And we do get some gossip, I'll tell you. But yeah, we've had a comment from Charlie Jade Metcalf on the Facebook live chat saying, why does Honda always cause the incidents and come out with no scratches or dents, Dan McCarthy? Why is that?
Do they? Do Honda always cause the incidents?
According to Charlie Jade Metcalf.
It's a bit of a contentious point there. I know...
touring cars? Contentious?
Yeah. Matt Neal certainly is one of the more aggressive drivers, but I think the roles were reversed for this weekend, because in the second race, I believe, he was taken off by Josh Price. There was contact there leading into Duffer's Dip, and he retired. And looking at it, it was maybe just a racing incident. But if you had to put one of the drivers at fault, it probably would be Josh Price. So, yeah, a bit of a contentious point there.
Yeah, we're getting on to race number 2, and we're sort of doing it in order, and then just for anybody who's not actually seen any of the touring car races, I'm going to presume that you all have. Anybody who's tuned in right now live, I'm going to just presume that you have seen them all. But anyway, we'll do it in chronological order. So race number 2, if you don't know, I'll tell you that there was a bit of an upset, because it was like, an hour afterwards, after Josh Price, after the results, he was disqualified. And what was the official reason given, Dan? Do you know?
I believe it's a bit like the British GT one, where they say driving in a manner incompatible with general safety. It was a driving standards issue which caused the disqualification. No, it wasn't. It was on the yellow flags. It was for an incident overtaken under yellow flags. That is what he was disqualified for officially. However, there've been numerous driving standards issues which have been flagged up during the course of the restart of the race, because let's not forget, this was part 2 of the race. We had an almighty shunt at turn 1 going through Duffers for the first time. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's a shame to see Josh, because he was looking very competitive, very racy, but maybe the excitement of being all up in the front running of the touring cars for the first time got to him. Again, Knockhill's a very quick, very tight circuit. It's incredibly tight, incredibly narrow. I think, it's a difficult one. In terms of narrow and sort of height adjustment, you got to think about... yes, actually, reasonably, let's look at this. It's a bit like Cabell Park, in effect, isn't it? That's very up and down. It's very bumpy, very narrow, very difficult for cars. But it's an interesting one. But sadly, it's a disqualification for him. But hopefully, we'll see him much better over the course of the meeting, or the course of the rest of the season. Because this is the first time I've seen him genuinely fired up, and he is. I've not seen much of him in his sort of support series career before, but in terms of what he showed at Knockhill, if he can keep it a bit cleaner, he'll be quite an interesting driver to watch.
Yeah, certainly. And Dan McCarthy, as Dan Marr was sort of alluding to, and as I sort of tried to set him off with, Josh Price disqualified or excluded from the second race, which kind of upset the third race grid, really, because it was dependent on the results not changing, but we know that they did, and yada yada. But anyway, it was still decent. I enjoyed race number 2, I thought. Did you? What did you make of race number 2?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think the incident at the start of it was a bit of a melee. It caused a long safety car delay to it. It was there's a few big incidents in it. Stephen Jelly's was the biggest one. It was a head-on collision with, I believe it was one of the Focuses that he collided head-on with. Might have been Senna Proctor, who's not actually in a Focus. He's in the Astra, so scratch that from the record. But it was an interesting race. I think Ash Sutton was always going to be fighting for the lead ahead of Jason Plato. It's the extra 9 kilos of weight ballast that like Dan said earlier in the show, it's a track that really does suit the rear wheel drive cars, and it did show throughout that second race, because those 4 cars, the 2 Subarus and the BMWs, weren't really getting caught by any of the other cars. They were the best 4 cars on that field at that current time, and they did dominate the second race.
Yeah, it was, like I say, the second race, for me anyway, I'm not entirely sure, because there was quite a bit that sort of happened in it, and I'm not entirely sure whether, I mean, there's so much happening. I'm in my mind, I always think, well, you know, the camera can only watch a certain amount of cars, whether it's like a handful, and there was, I'm always conscious of like thinking, because I usually watch with the timing, the TSL timing, alongside the actual ITV4 pictures as well, and I'm always looking at what other people are doing and seeing where like where there's usually like a gap that's decreasing, or looking for where the next fight on track is going to be at, which is pretty frenzied at times, because there's always a fight and there's always a close pack of cars happening in touring cars, and that's why we like it as well. Driving standards, though, up to this point at race 2, Dan Marr, what were your thoughts on it, if you have any at all?
Well, driving standards in race 2, I've said over the course of the season that driving standards have been interesting. I'm not really want to discuss them, because it's just I've been disappointed by some of the driving standards demonstrated throughout the season.
You are allowed to discuss them. There is literally nobody
let's
from
look at
Facebook
Snetterton, for example. Let's look at Snetterton, for example. I can see his face now. Let's look at Snetterton, for example. Sean Hollenby was quite upset, understandably upset, because his 2 cars are getting attacked left, right and centre by loads of people throughout all 3 races at Snetterton. You know, we had a very battered, well, let's be realistic, two very battered Audis, because the MGs kept attacking into them. Obviously, you know, Knockhill's always going to be a tight circuit. Surprisingly, the driving standards of race 1, they weren't too bad. And then, obviously, race 2, it sort of went, well, I think the technical term is tits up, basically. There was a massive pile-up coming through turn 1, going through Duffers. Well, actually, it didn't even start there. It started with Senna Proctor and Tom Ingram going to blows straight off the line. Tom Ingram didn't get the best of starts, which is understandable. And then it sort of, Senna Proctor drives into the back of him, sending Tom Ingram left, right, centre. He manages to pull straight, though. And then going through turn 1, going through Duffers Dip for the first time, we had 3 cars in one of the Hondas, I think it was Matt Neal, who all got stuck together, which caused a sort of a kaleidoscope effect. You know, it went backwards. We had people spinning. Andrew Jordan was went in a bit hot, locked up, made contact, or didn't quite make contact. He locked up, got a few taps, and then got spammed around some big hits. Stephen Jelly had quite a large hit as well from the front. But again, it's an interesting case in race 2, because the driving standards this season for me have been poor at times. Knockhill's never going to help, but some of the driving standards in some of the categories were left a lot to be desired, but up front we had quite good, clean battles.
Suppose. I remember from looking on, let's say, the internet, I won't name any names, Adam Weaver of PowerMaxed, but, what? Oh, I did. Okay. But yeah, no, he did say publicly, so if you say it on the internet, then it is public, to quote Adam Weaver from PowerMaxed Racing, and maybe he's justified in saying, I'm not to validate anything, but maybe you can with your comments. Anyway, he said, I hate Knockhill. The place is an embarrassment to professional motorsport. Dan McCarthy.
I think that's a little bit harsh. It's perhaps not the most developed circuit. I mean, you look at the cars when they go in the pit lane, and it's almost like they're under a gazebo instead of proper garages. So it's maybe a track that needs revamping a little bit. But I think it's a really good circuit. I like the undulations in it. It makes for interesting racing, coming over the crest, the chicane, where some of the bollards were getting battered because of the close racing.
That happens all the time.
It's a circuit that I like, to be honest, and I wouldn't call it an embarrassment at all. I think it's, like I said, maybe in need of a a lick of paint, to use the phrase, but it's a circuit I'd definitely like to keep on the BTCC calendar, because I won't say there are too many options otherwise in this country for tracks that the touring cars could go to. Yeah. Maybe Cadwell Park. Other than that, I can't really think of any off the top of my head that'd be good enough to support such a big event in British motorsport.
Well, he did clarify, to be fair to Adam, he did clarify in follow-up today, about an hour ago, from some of the comments that other people were saying on that thing that I mentioned. He did say that, quote, my emotion may have been a bit strong posting this last night. Trapped in the car park for over an hour after such a bad and very expensive day. Just to be clear, I like Knockhill track. I want to see the facilities improve by a fair jump to benefit everyone, which is something I'd like to help with if I can. So
yeah, that's kind of echoing what I've just said. The track itself is fine, but you do look at it when it's being televised, and you just don't get the sense that it's very spectator or team friendly, because there's no sort of like big grandstands or big technology or anything like that. Really, it's maybe does need a bit of money ploughed into it.
Well, we did invite one of the regular team members from Knockhill Circuit, David Christie, on the show tonight. He wasn't able to make it, unfortunately, and that was something that perhaps rather sneakily and cheekily I'd lined up a question for him for. Obviously, he would have totally defended Knockhill to the hilt. But yeah, Dan, I'll give you an opportunity. Marr, I'll give you an opportunity to weigh in on what Dan McCarthy and Adam Weaver has said, and what other people online have said.
That's quite an interesting one. You know, Knockhill, I think, is a really good circuit. I quite enjoy watching the racing there. It's great. It's the variety we get in the championship. Obviously, we'd always love to see, you know, the facilities being upgraded, and you know, we hope to see that they do get them upgraded at Knockhill. You know, getting trapped in a car park for an hour is nothing new at a race circuit when you get such a big population of people coming along. I mean, we see it at Silverstone, we see it at Autumn Park, we see it pretty much everywhere. And then, obviously, it's going to be an interesting one. You know, it's like anywhere. We're looking at Thruxton. You know, for years has been neglected in terms of its facilities, and finally people start to actually coming in. Hopefully, giving the facilities a good bump, because I believe they could do some good ones there. They could do a bigger garages, stuff like that. But you know, we can hope that they get investment, and it's nice to see that, you know, Adam's suggesting he'd like to help out with the investment, because it's a difficult one for circuits in sort of the climate that we're in currently. But in terms of racing, you know, I think Knockhill's great. It's great we get the variety of circuits for the BTCC and then just in motorsport in general, because without Knockhill, you know, Silverstone's quite a big circuit in terms of it's quite a large circuit, lots of runoff. Personally, for me, it's a great place to go, but to spectate, it's not great because you're still, you know, quite far removed from the cars. Yet you go to the likes of Autumn Park and Knockhill, and you can get so close to the cars and really feel the energy of them. So it's great we get the balance, but as you say, that where else could we take the touring cars? Because we can't go onto the Silverstone, the international version of Silverstone, because the paddock isn't big enough for the touring cars and all the support races. It's been mooted before, and it'd be an interesting one, but of course there's no space for it. So, well, you know, I mean, where else?
There is space at Silverstone in general. I mean, just because.
Yeah, but not purely in the international circuit. The reason why they don't use it is because they'd have to house all the support stuff, a bit like Formula One does, in the national pits, which takes a long time to take it around from part of the circuit and then onto the international circuit, which is the bit they're actually using, compared to the Silverstone paddock, where you can fit everything in one. So,
yeah, well, certainly.
I agree with Dan's point on Silverstone being not the most friendly circuit in terms of spectators. I mean,
oh yeah, everyone knows that.
I actually haven't been to Silverstone since they changed the track layout and they put the new infield part, but it was one of those circuits where you're almost left quite cold, because like Dan said, you are quite far away from the action. It's not like other circuits where you can go in field and you can see action from lots of different places. I think Alton Park for me is probably the best example of that. When you stood at Cascade, you can see that in Knickerbrook. Whereas Silverstone, it's almost like one corner is all you're getting, really. You'll have to move around a lot. So I think it can't just be limited to Knockhill because it's, you know, a smaller circuit that doesn't really have as many facilities. I think there are other tracks where facilities for spectators and teams do need to be looked at and potentially upgraded. Well,
perhaps they need a bit of competition. Knockhill is the only proper race circuit. There are race events, karting tracks in Scotland, but Knockhill, I mean, they don't have any competition, so why do they possibly need to improve? I'm just playing devil's advocate, but maybe there's a bit of that type of mindset going on. Who knows? I want to get on to a couple of the other comments that have been flooding in, all two of them, in the last few minutes. Matty Fogg.
There's been quite a few.
Yeah, there has actually. There's been quite a few people tuned in, and hello, if you're one of them. Matty Fogg says, I think BMR should lose their boost for Rockingham, he says. Otherwise, it won't be a fair weekend, Dan Marr.
Well, yes, of course, to add context to Matty Fogg's, obviously he said on the stream earlier, thank you for our comments, actually. Let's see, we'll go back to everyone else in just a moment because we'll talk about Matty first. He initially said, I don't think it's fair because how the boost has been increased for BMR but not for motor-based performance. Later on saying, Jason Plato kicked off, so they increased his boost but not Matt Jackson's. I think BMR should lose their boost for Rockingham, otherwise it won't be a fair weekend. Now, obviously it's a bit of contention. The way that Token One's done, it's done, I believe, semi-automatically, a bit like the WC one for the GTE cars, in the way that it calculates it roughly depending on performance scales, depending on this and that. And obviously the way they do it, obviously the Fords are never the quickest things in a straight line, but so the Subarus always struggle a little bit. Of course, it's judged a lot of it on straight line speed, but also how the chassis copes and how quick the car is in turn. Because, you know, unlike some of the older days, for example, where you could just build the best car and go out and race. That's personally my way of looking at racing, but never mind. The way that it's balanced now in small ways is that it evaluates, okay, well, you can do a 125, let's use that as a stock time, you know, 125 using this setting and this boost and this and that. Okay, well, these ones can do a 125, but generally they're not as competitive, so we'll give them a bit more to give them a bit more in line compared to everyone else, so it'll even out, and then they'll be able to do a 125 fairly. Now, of course, it changes going from, you know, race to race and from, you know, meetings to meetings, and it's an interesting one. I've not been following the touring cars quite as much this year, so I've not been able to watch the dynamic with the boost changes, but they did, I believe, had it changed. Was it Alton Park or was it Snetterton, I believe, where they actually had boost docked between the first and the second race, and then it got put back up for the third race. Of course, Matty's now literally just come in and replied, BMR have full ballast and still quickest team on track. Well, I'm going to be honest, Matty, I personally believe that Knockhill is not a fair place to really judge that car, because the Subaru suits Knockhill so much, you know, having a much lower down engine, the weight's much lower in the car, which means you can move around more. Of course, you are airborne for a fair amount of time as well. So the chassis fundamentally suits Knockhill almost perfectly. But, you know, we'll wait and see what it is like at Rockingham, and I believe, obviously, Toka will look at it and say, well, you know, these guys do have it too much, so we will take some away from them, or maybe they'll just leave it as it is, depending on what they see fit and what they believe.
Well, thank you for that analysis, Dan Marr. Yes, Blair Henderson has been in touch, and I'm almost reading this out with a Scottish accent.
Don't do it.
I won't do
Please
it.
Don't. Please don't do it.
But
do it.
No. But Blair asks, have any of you actually been to Knockhill? And well, I've never been, unfortunately.
No,
yet.
I've sadly not.
No, I've never been.
So you might.
I do want to go though.
Yeah, so do I actually. I really do. I'm sure Dan McCarthy also wants to go one day.
Yes, one day.
Yeah. When it comes to actual facilities, we do, and talking about them, perhaps we do rely on other people's opinions. You're welcome to chip in with your own opinion and tell us what it's actually like, Blair, and the facilities. Do you agree with Adam Weaver with what his comments were, or perhaps somebody else? Or I never been, don't know, and don't have an opinion on it. I only know what I've read, basically, and I don't even believe most of that, to be honest. But anyway, Jake Batchelor suggests that Brands Hatch is quite good for spectating, as we know. Jake, thank you very much for that contribution.
The grandstand at Paddock Hill Bend, when it's on the Indy circuit, that's the perfect place to watch motorsport, where you can see the whole track. Brilliant stuff.
Certainly is, and our friend Paul Clark, who has a box up in the actual grandstand there at Brands Hatch, and who's tunes in occasionally. Hello, Paul. If you're tuned in right now, we'll know all about what you're saying, Dan McCarthy. So certainly, Paul Owen. A friend of the show as well, says, come on then, guys, pick a champion. Let's pick a champion. Is it too early to do that? I think it might be.
Yes, it is.
It might be.
It's too early to confidently pick someone, but if I had to make a hunch, it would be Ash Sutton. I think at the right time of the season, the Subarus have started to come into form. The qualifying performance for them has been very good. It would be, for me, between him and Colin Turkington. I think Tom Ingram earlier in the season probably was one of the favourites through it, but he's been far too inconsistent, being dogged by reliability problems and retirements. And Gordon Shedden's the other one in the Honda. His qualifying's been erratic, to say the least, recently. So I would opt for Sutton, but for me it's between him and Colin Turkington.
So almost sitting on the fence. Dan, I'll give you an opportunity to chime in if you have any opinions on.
I'm purely staying on the fence until we go
after the last round.
Yes. No, in all seriousness, though, until we get after race 3 at Rockingham, I'll be feeling much more confident.
Why?
Because we've seen in recent years that if you lead coming out, with the exception of last year, but I'm not going to mention that, Sam. I've already said that to him once. In all seriousness, coming out of Rockingham, if you're still in the lead of the championship coming out of Rockingham, you're in a much better position to come out on top in the championship overall. Rockingham's an interesting circuit to go around, and I think Colin Turkington will suit Rockingham. The BMW should go quite all right around Rockingham as well. You know, you mentioned earlier, of course, about the Hondas as well being quite close. And it is going to be very tight. It's looking incredibly tight at the championship. I'm just going to get the points on now, actually. But it's nothing close, as it always seems to be in the touring cars. I don't know why, because we always end up at the same point every year going, oh, but this person's clearly going to win it this year. And we come to the last race of the season, and, you go, wow, how could it finish that well? Or how could we be that close? Let's put this into context. Colin Turkington currently on the top of the championship on 265 points, only 4 behind Ashley Sutton on 261, Gordon Shedden on 253 in third. Fourth place is Rob Collard on 248. So if he has a good meeting, he could get in and around the mix as well. The next sort of guys around him then, Tom Ingram on 204 in fifth and 172 for Matt Neal in sixth. So it's looking interesting.
Certainly is.
Interestingly close.
And what Dan Marr was alluding to, I know it probably went over your head when Dan Marr was suggesting that he'd already mentioned about the Brands last round thing to Tordoff anyway. But yeah, the thing that happened to Tordoff, and Dan mentioned it at the first, I think it was the media day at the British GT after he'd made the switch. And here is that moment.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah, here it is.
How does it mean to go on?
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. Sam, thank you very much for talking to me. See, it did get through the whole interview without mentioning Dubai. Well, that's the wrong moment,
Dubai.
Lester.
Anyway, I'll leave you.
Look, Lester Forbes trying to be clever and it didn't work.
But still, anyway, did manage
same face.
Did manage to rub Sam's nose in some disappointment, anyways. So anyway,
speaking of disappointment, Nick Hunt's just commented. He's just said, but you can't wait until the last race to make a decision. Stick your necks out. Well, whoops.
Yeah.
See,
anyway.
I'm very sitting on the fence. Dan, I believe you're also sitting on the fence. Right then, Lester.
No,
Ever the man to cause controversy.
Offense.
Well, if you're new to Monday Motorsport on Motorsport Radio, you won't probably know my illustrious history of correctly predicting certain things, and I correctly predicted a lot of different things. Not all the time, admittedly. I am often wrong. But let's see who... I'm having a look at the standings right now, touring car standings. It is so close between Turkington and Sutton, and I'm going to say Sutton will be champion this season.
Yeah, me too. I think the advantage that Colin Turkington has is that he's been there and done it, but I think it is time for a new champion, and I think Ash Sutton's going to be the man.
I don't even think it's time for a new champion, to be honest. I think Brands Hatch might be a similar type of... I'm just going off previous showdowns, to be honest. And I think if the Subarus can put up a similar performance, i.e. outpace the others, and they kind of did, or they had the advantage anyway at Knockhill, it stands to reason that they could well do the same again when they return back at Brands. And that might be the thing that sort of tips it over the edge. So I'm going to say Sutton for the championship. Will I be correct? Well, if I am, you'll certainly hear about it all winter. If not, you'll never hear about this ever again. I'll cut this bit out of the show and you'll hear about it anyway.
Wonderful.
Hello to Charlie Fagg, who's apparently tuned in, and he probably tuned out by now. But for the
don't doubt yourself
for the few seconds. But I want to hear what Nick thinks as well. Stick your neck out, Nick. And tell us who's going to be the champion. We should have some sort of like competition going. Tell you what, let's do that actually. Head to our website, motorsport.radio, join up for free, and post who you think will be the champion. And end of the season, we'll I don't know.
We'll reflect, shall we?
We'll reflect heavily. My correct predictions. Jake Batchelor, been on again, says, I know there's a lot of talk about boost and stuff regarding BMR, but I think Sutton could bag his maiden championship. Agreeing with me, potentially, if you didn't already send that before I said it.
And me. He's probably going off what I said, being the expert.
Yeah, exactly. Loosely termed experts that we are. David Davros Lay has been in touch as well. Hello, for tuning in. Says, first time watching, really enjoyed our opinions. Well, at least someone did. Said with a smiley face. Been looking for a BTCC podcast. Will tune into future broadcasts. Sutton for champion for him. There you go. It's almost unanimous that Ashley Sutton's such a nice guy anyway. I don't know anybody who doesn't like him apart from the people that he beats on track. Yeah.
Well, that was witty.
Thank you.
Maybe do a competition. Find someone that doesn't like Ash Sutton.
Let's put that on the back burner for now, Dan McCarthy, because I'm sure there will be some Facebook groups that will explode with that. But yeah, anyway, on to race number 3. We've not even got to race 3 yet, and Dan Marr's already flying out with the points. What happened in race 3 anyway? Oh my god. It was a Tingram win.
Tom Ingram. His name is Tom Ingram.
Tingram.
No, it is Tom Ingram.
Tom Ingram.
No.
Tom Ingram victory, and it was only a narrow win, I suppose, not as marginal as can be in touring cars. A 1.1 second gap between him and second place Gordon Shedden and Colin Turkington in third place. Dan McCarthy, did you enjoy race 3? What happened?
Yeah, I think it was going on from the reverse grid standings. It was Antwort Niels who got pole position. It was the top 10 that were reversed, and a new man to the championship, Rory Butcher, was second. And there was an interesting moment, actually. Just, I think if we briefly go back to yes, it was in race 3 actually. He's the brother-in-law of Gordon Shedden, and Rory Butcher was making his BTCC debut, and there were times when those two were really racing alongside each other. Butcher wasn't really giving his brother-in-law any time and space on the track, even though he needs all the places he can get for the championship. So that was pretty interesting to watch. But it was Walt Niels and Butcher on the front row of the grid. It was one of those races, I think, where it was almost inevitable that those two cars at the front were going to fall down the grid, because they're not necessarily the quickest cars, and with the ballast, it looked like it was a great opportunity for Tom Ingram, who was third and who does have race-winning experience, for him to kind of pick those two cars off straight away and kind of race away for the win. But other cars, Shedden and Turkington, they finished second and third. They managed to get past those two, and Tom Ingram managed to hold on for the win.
And Dan Marr, same question to you. Race 3, did you enjoy it? Did it live up to your expectations? Who could have done better? Who failed? And your general opinion of it.
It was interesting. It's an interesting one. Obviously, race 3. Tom Ingram 1.1 second win doesn't really tell the story of the race, because he did a phenomenal job throughout the course of the race. Gap of 6 or 7 seconds at one point around Knockhill, which is quite the feat in reality, especially with the closeness we've seen all day. But, it was an interesting race. Things happened. Obviously, you just sort of a close fought battles between obviously 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. It got a bit tight like we normally see it, but there wasn't that much action. Again, a lot of it seemed to be confined to race 2, but for me, race 3 was a little bit more calm, even though normally people go hell for leather throughout the course of race 3. It was a little bit quiet, maybe conscious that they've got to be out in 2 weeks' time. For some cars, their days had already been done through race 2. And it's an interesting one, but, race 3 for me wasn't at all, that fun. But sadly for Rob Austin, I believe race 3 was one to forget for him. Of course, he came into the pits with an issue, came back out, stopped out the circuit, and I believe that caused a safety car, and then carried on. So, not a great one for him, not a great weekend for him, which is an interesting one. And it's sort of, in fact, actually, James Cole, Stevie Laird's commented saying, "Hi folks, what is your thoughts on James Cole? Apart from an average performance at Knockhill, what's he done in the last 2 seasons?" Well, sort of goes even further back, sort of to 3 or 4 seasons ago when he joined him in the United Autosports in the Toyota. I haven't got a can here, but can worms opened. I
like James Cole. He's a good lad.
He seems decent. I've interviewed him very briefly media day last year.
Yeah,
but
that's
I think that's all I really have to add to that. Okay, Mr. McCarthy, what do you think?
Yeah, he's kind of been a bit underwhelming really at the Subaru team. Let's face it, he's been nowhere near the pace of Ash Sutton for the majority of the time. He's not really been near Jason Plato. It's an interesting one really. He did show signs of promise at Knockhill, and the consistency of the finishes. He got a hat-trick of 5th place positions. So usually in a touring car meeting, a good weekend would be a good finish in 2 of the races, and you can kind of not dispense of one of them, but because of the amount of cars and the reverse grids, it is likely that you will fall down. So there were good results for him, but I'm in agreement really about his standing. He's not really performed too brilliantly. He's normally found himself no higher than, out of the 32 cars, he's been no higher than the top half of the grid, no higher than 16th usually. So it could be, from now until the end of the season, a bit of a last chance saloon for him, because I'm sure from the lower formulas, the support races, there will be guys who will be vying for a touring car spot in 2018, and with the Subaru team being as big as it is, with the 3 cars, or 4 cars, 3 cars, however many cars on the grid.
There's 4 cars.
Yeah, they will be looking maybe to replace him if the results don't keep coming.
Well,
it's interesting. Sorry, Lester.
No, I was just having a quick look at his results regarding James Cole for the season, and yesterday the round at Knockhill seems to have actually been his biggest points haul so far in 2017, picking up the most points. He had a good round at Snetterton as well, picking up the first amount of points. So you perhaps could argue that maybe his lack of points in the first part of the season was coincide with the team's overall problems and struggles. So
that could be a fair comment. But
Ash Sutton's been getting the points in the first part of the season, so.
Yeah, but you could say, if Ash Sutton's been getting the points, then surely Jason Plato should also be better than him, because surely Plato's better than Sutton, in theory.
Well, maybe so, but Jason Plato, I think, was doing better than James Cole anyway, so it is a tricky one. I think it is probably down to driver talent, to be honest. Ash Sutton's a tremendous touring car driver, and if he doesn't win the championship this year, I think he will win it at some point in the future, so you just got to look really and weigh everything up and see, is he good enough to be driving a car that should be challenging at the front of the grid? We don't know.
Dan Marr, sorry, I interrupted you. What was you saying?
No, I was just going to say I do agree that how did all of a sudden we get all four cars being bang on the pace? And again, this is what I was saying about the sort of the performance of the Subarus at Knockhill. That the fact that all four at one point were running in the top 10. It was a fantastic weekend for them. Obviously, Stevie Laddie came back to us and said he's not there to be nice, it's all results. And then I think he started to agree with us. He said, thank you, sir, when we started discussing sort of the struggles he was having. Matty Fogg has come back saying BMR/Jason Plato letting his sponsors down, so increased his boost. I can't really see that being a factor for Toka. They are there for the show, but they're not there to support one particular driver. It's like, the FIA used to be called the Ferrari International Assistants. I think it's just sometimes hyperbole. It's a shame, but that's how these things happen. An interesting comment from Nick Hunt, first of all, who said, gutted for Adam Morgan, who's had an absolute mare this weekend, who had loads of issues in qualifying, fluid down in qualifying, same issue in race 1, which was a cooling pump. The same thing then happened in race 2, but luckily did manage to get back out onto the grid in race 2 before it broke again. And then race 3, I'm not really sure what happened to him in race 3. But speaking of people who in cars that really should be challenging up there, it's a shame to see that Adam Morgan's been having so many issues, because he is a man who should be at the top, getting close to the top of the results and getting some decent stuff. He got 4 points in the second race, but nothing else all weekend, so it's a big shame for him. Blair Henderson's also said it was Roy Butcher's first time out in the car this weekend. If he was out in the car from the start, it would be a different story. But what a fantastic debut from Rory, though. Some great results.
Yeah, certainly. Sorry.
Initially.
Yeah, go on. I had a question about Rory Butcher. That's all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, I was just. Blair basically stole my thunder, and I was going to ask you guys what you thought about Rory Butcher's first time out in the car. And, anyway.
Don't blame me, blame Blair. Please don't use that hashtag on Twitter. You might get to somewhere that you might not like. Rory
Butcher's first time out in the car. To be honest, I found it kind of surprising, because it's a name obviously that we all know anyway from being regularly on TV and racing for many years. And I wasn't that, to be honest, in the best way possible, I wasn't that bothered that it was his debut, because I had absolutely no problems about him, because we all know he's a quick, fast driver anyway, and I just presumed he would do well, and he sort of did, didn't he?
Yeah, he did do well. I mean, when you consider that the car he was in has not really been that much of a challenger at the front of the grid for many times of the BTCC season. In race 3, he did find himself on the front row of the grid. I know it is the reverse race, but that's just how BTCC is. It gives a chance for the cars that are a bit lower down to be at the front of the grid. And I thought he acquitted himself quite well in the Focus. I think there maybe could be a future for him in BTCC as a full-time driver if he impresses towards the end of the season. But just picking up on a point that Dan made on Adam Morgan, I mean, for me, him and Rob Austin are probably the two unluckiest drivers on the BTCC grid. I think Adam Morgan in particular, I remember being on a show with you earlier on in the season, and I tipped him to be one of the dark horses to maybe not challenge for the title, but to be in the top 5 and maybe cause a bit of a stir. But it seems to have just been fault after fault and retirement after retirement for him. It's been really kind of a bad season for him, and to get to that stage now where he might have to just wipe the slate clean, continue for the rest of the season, but then just focus on the car for next year, because it's a car for me that should be up there winning races and challenging regularly.
Yeah, his best results in terms of points hauls, anyway, I think came at the first round at Brands, picking up the most amount of points anyway. I think, anyway, just having a quick look back through his points. But yeah, I mean, he's still he's not far off the top 10. Is old Adam Morgan, and yeah, he's due some good luck anytime soon, Dan Marr.
Yes, he is. Well, he's only 2 points off Jason Plato in 10th place. I think Adam Morgan should be up there. He's an incredibly quick guy in an incredibly quick car, a very capable car. I don't understand sometimes the positivity that goes into Rob Austin. He is a good driver on his day, but I've found that, at certain points this year, I've found some of his driving standards to be ludicrous. And we've seen with some of the historical comments and historical doings in terms of picking out his own ball for the championship bowl and stuff like that. It's little things like that which can sometimes turn me off a driver. But, on his day, I'll give him his due. Rob is incredibly quick. I think, how many races he won? One or two. He did help develop an Audi A4, which was, when it first started, was basically a dog, but helped build that into something that wasn't as bad. But, I'm looking at the likes of Adam Morgan, who we should see further up the grid. Aidan Moffat, with a bit of luck, could be up there as well, I believe. Incredibly talented guy. And then, we look further down. We've got Josh Cook, of course, switched cars halfway through the season. Tom Chilton. When they get that Vauxhall on, I truly believe Tom Chilton is going to be up there, because he's a stellar driver in the WTCC, in the British Touring Car Championship. It's a great coup for the championship to get Tom back. And we'll see him being incredibly competitive, I believe, next year when that car really is on it. And it's an interesting one. We mentioned about Roy Butcher. We've seen him fantastically well in British GT and ELMS and all that. A lot of it was being pushed out purely because, well, in my opinion, purely because it was Knockhill, the brother-in-law of Gordon Shedden and son of the circuit owner. If he made his debut at Croft or somewhere, it'd just be, Roy Butcher, ex-GT driver. It's a bit like Michael Caine, who is an incredibly quick GT driver as well. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because if, Michael Caine didn't get much of a build-up, it's like, okay, here's Michael Caine. This guy's quick. Let's just, sort of ignore him for a bit. But
there's nothing wrong with a bit of good PR. I mean, obviously...
No, of course not. Of course not. I wasn't suggesting that, but it's a shame. It's a shame that, all this pressure's mounted on him, but it's fantastic to see that he got all the performances, and I'm really sort of heightened for what he's going to do throughout the rest of the season.
Certainly, if I'm a Scottish driver and I might want to enter touring cars mid-season, perhaps, of course I'm going to do it at Knockhill, and I know I'm going to get lots of media attention from all the Scottish press and especially everybody else, especially if my name's Rory Butcher, being...
It helps if you're the brother-in-law of the reigning champion as well.
Yeah, and the obvious direct ties to the actual ownership of the circuit itself. So, yeah, from a PR point of view, I don't think he could have, apart from won all 3 races, I don't think he could have done more. So, well done. Congrats to Rory Butcher is what I'm saying. But what do you think? If you're tuned in, listening live, and have an opinion, then feel free to disagree with anything that Dan Marr or Dan McCarthy has said. Or anything I've said. Lo and behold, that does sometimes happen. You're more than welcome to do so. We currently streaming right now live on, I think, YouTube and our website, motorsport.radio, where you can join for free and listen live as a listener. And also on Facebook Live as well, and many other different places on Twitch as well. And I think Ustream, if that's still a thing.
Places.
Lots of places. All the places. I have good places. The best places. And we're streaming on there right now live. And touring car, the actual championship, if you don't know, as Dan Marr alluded to earlier, Colin Turkington is out in front by not much, only 4 points at the moment, from Ash Sutton, who most of us have dubbed this year's champion-elect in waiting. And a couple of points behind them is Gordon Shedden on 253 points. Can't read. Rob Collard in 4th place, and he's a few points behind Gordon Shedden. Can't count either. And Tom Ingram's in 5th place, waiting to pounce, but he's quite a long way back. It's kind of just the top 4, and maybe even Rob Collard could pull off a huge shock and beat all of them in the championship. No. Matt Neal in 6th place. And come on. Andrew Jordan in 7th. Matt Jackson in 8th. No disrespect, Rob.
Well, we saw this last year. Sam Torloff led it till pretty much the end, and then lo and behold, Gordon Shedden did the drive and won. So you can't discredit it until the checkered flag drops.
Do we really think Rob Collard's going to win the championship, though, Dan McCarthy?
He's got a chance. Let's give the man that. He's got a fairly decent chance. I mean, he's only about 20-odd points behind. That's only a race victory.
Could happen.
Yeah.
It could.
We've got 9 races left.
I'd like to see him win the championship. I think he's been such a
You just said Ash Sutton wanted him to win.
No, that's who I think will win.
Oh, okay. So this is who you want to win.
Yeah, he's been such a stalwart of the BTCC. He's historically been a really good driver to watch, always very aggressive. They're the sorts of drivers that I do like to watch, but unfortunately I think he might be just used for the rest of the season as maybe like a pawn in helping Colin Turkington win the championship. He won't like to hear that, but being the number 2 driver, I think even himself wouldn't deny that he is the number 2 driver in that team.
I think he would.
He could almost be used just as a battering ram to help Colin Turkington win the title.
Well done, Rob. You're only there to be a battering ram. Well, that's literally what he said.
Maybe not in that terminology. Yeah. Okay, I'll retract that statement.
Oh, poor old
Rob's
probably listening
what
to
you
this
should suggest, but
you've probably just peed all over his hopes of winning that title, and you just said that's who you hope to win.
I was giving a helpful different term of, terminology, but I genuinely believe, given a bit of luck, he could be in with a chance at the title.
Yeah, certainly.
Let's not be too rude. I mean, come on.
I wasn't rude. It was McCarthy who said that.
No,
he called him a battering ram.
I was honest.
A good for nothing battering ram. And he just
he didn't say that. Les.
Might as well have done
that now. He didn't say that. No.
Well, that's what I heard.
So, but
twisting words.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, my thoughts are, if he's given a chance, he could well go up for it. The 2 BMWs are so close together in the championship, they can't really risk one for another. We saw this, years ago with Aaron Smith, who's back then he was, and Jason Plato at Brands Hatch when they weren't playing fairly because they'd had a bit of a falling out before the race. You can't expect in the heat of a championship battle someone to pull over, because they're in with the chance. When you're in with the chance, it's all guns out. And we've seen time and time again in many forms of motorsport, just because you're starting behind doesn't mean you aren't going to come out in front. I mean, look at the British GTs last weekend, for example. We were saying how this could be the weekend where, Phil Keane and John Minshaw were going to win the title, yet we came out with it, and instead of it being a 10-point lead for the Lamborghinis, it's a 10.5-point lead for the Bentley. It's all shaken up. It happens, and, we can't discredit it if it does.
That is a possibility. Dan Marr throwing some common sense over the situation of the championship, which is pretty much still all in the air, to be fair, because although I would still say that it is still the top 4 right now, Collard, Shedden, Sutton and Turkington, who will be in the fight. Maybe, possibly, depending on what happens at Rockingham, like you said, Dan Marr, that top 4 might only become a top 3 or potentially a top 2 heading in to the round after that. But yeah, it was also the return of Aaron Taylor-Smith as well, I think, this weekend. Knockhill. Was it not?
I believe he was back out at Snetterton, yes.
Okay. That shows how much I pay attention to Aaron. Sorry. There you go. Hello to Tom Witts as well, who's joined in the whatever this is, live show. Hello, Tom. And to Patrick Pasma. Hi, Patrick. We've not talked about you yet, but we might.
We might.
We might. There were 4 F4 races at the weekend.
4
F4 races. I think there should be 4 F4 races every weekend.
It was replacement for round 12, which was at Autumn Park, wasn't it? The second of 4 F4 races.
You're right there, Murray. But anyway, since we're talking about Patrick Pasma and F4, we might as well just talk about what happened. Race 1, didn't see it. The amended race result from race 1, which includes a car 22, Manuel Suleiman, who was excluded from the results. Okay. But yeah, Oscar Piastri won that one. Jamie Caroline in second, Ayrton Simmons in third, Alex Quinn in fourth. That was in race number 1. The race 2 result, which was the Alton Park race, I don't know why it wasn't race number 1, but anyway, it was classified as race 2 on TSL anyway. Classification for that: Caroline won, Sargent second, Massad in third place, Ollie York in fourth place. Not bad. Which was the televised ITV races? Was it 3 and 4?
3 and 4 were the televised ITV races.
I missed the start of race 3, but I did see the rest of it, I think, which was a win for Oliver York in race number 3. Logan Sargent and Hampus Eriksson. I do remember there was a bit of chaos. I can't remember if it was the end of race 3 or the end of race 4, which they all kind of like had a bit of a moment together, and there was a coming together at the last corner. One of those races, anyway. It might have been race 4. Yeah, I should pay attention more. Apologies. But yeah, Oscar Piastri winning race number 4 of the weekend. Alex Quinn doing brilliantly to get second. And Ayrton Simmons in third place. Patrick Pasma. Hello, Patrick. If you're still tuned in to us, was 7th in race number 4. And the overall championship points right now, as of Monday, on Monday Motorsport, the old championship is, it's Jamie Caroline. Who else leading the championship? 334 points. Oscar Piastri in second place on 288. Logan Sargent with his third place on 234. Alex Quinn in fourth place. Linus Lundqvist in fifth place, who I probably am going to predict he's going to F3. BRDC British F3 in 2018. He's already done one round at Spa. Did all right. Did pretty well. And he's fifth in F4. So, yeah, maybe that's where the next rung on the ladder is for Linus, who looks a lot older in real life. Anyway, it's older than me. No. And I suppose Patrick Pasma is in 8th place in the championship standings, being a former Formula Ford 1600 championship, national championship driver as well. And he impressed last year in that championship. I would know. I followed it every round, almost every round. Yes. So yes, on to the next thing as well. After an unannounced Formula 4 trip through the results, and that is the where is it now? Jiminy Cricket. Okay, yes, Porsche Carreras, because there was a lot of controversy in that as well. In particular, the big incident, which Dan Marr has got some comments on his chest that he would like to get off his chest. Dan Marr.
So, as many people will know, I'm
Tell us
quite a
what
big fan
happened
of
first.
Okay, I was just giving context, but never mind. So, the final lap on the final race, or the second last lap in the final race of the day, for the Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain. Coming through after the chicane, the right-hander after the chicane, I don't know the corner name, I'm afraid to say. The Dan Camish went for a move, ran the outside. He was in fact, he went for a move up the inside coming into the corner, the right-hander. He got on halfway alongside as the cars came out. Charlie Eastwood, the championship protagonist, the second place in the championship, very close, got side by side. Charlie darted to the right, which pushed Dan Camish wide. He hit the barriers and was out of the race. And of course, Charlie Eastwood, won. I believe he won the race. So it was all got a bit too close for comfort, really. And Dan Camish, who was doing all right on drop scores, it was something like 2 points on drop scores, because of course the Porsche Carrera Cup have introduced the drop scores for this season, where you can drop your 2 worst results, of course, because Dan Camish wasn't at Snetterton because he was obviously at Hungary, because he races in the Porsche Super Cup over in Europe and Asia, that supports from elsewhere, because of course that also supports Formula 1. And I think he's 3rd or 4th in that championship in his rookie season, which is really good for a rookie. But yeah, so it meant that Charlie Eastwood, got a full complement of points. Dan Camish didn't. He retired. He got 0 points, which then means Charlie Eastwood is in the top of the championship so far, with 183 points, 13 ahead of Dino Zamparelli on 170, and 152 points for Dan Camish, which isn't great because, he's already missed 2 races. He's got 2 dropped scores of 0. Obviously, that meant that, Charlie Eastwood, as far as I can see, he's going to have to drop. I can see he can drop an 8 points and 9 points.
This is going to get well complicated, well quick.
Yeah, but of course... So even though Charlie Eastwood still has more points than Daniel Camish, because even though Dan Camish has won more races, obviously he's got another 0 to take into account, whereas 9 and 8 points, that many points, Charlie Eastwood is going to have to drop so far. And with 4 races left to go, Dan Camish is going to have to be on it at every single race. And then... Charlie Eastwood is going to have to lose a couple of points in order to keep those points, or he'll lose points. This is a good thing about the drop score system, is you can drop 0 points, but if you've got all points, you're going to have to start losing points, which means if you win it by 1 point in the championship at the end of the season, but haven't dropped any scores, it means you lose the championship because you were better and got points. But the issue is, Charlie Eastwood... Yeah. Kept all his points and was given a 10-place grid penalty for the next race, which at Silverstone quite suits the Porsches. So overtaking is not going to be the most difficult things to do, which is a bit of a shame, really. Poor Dan, he went on to Twitter with a bit of a rant earlier on today, I believe, settled it and sort of made sure everyone sort of understood what he was feeling right now. But it's a shame. It's a shame because it was looking like such a great championship, a championship battle. I'm a big fan of Dan, as we said before. He dominated in Formula Fords. He did well in the British GT when he had his there. He's a real GT talent for the future. But to lose a championship, potentially lose a championship by the way that it's happened, I think is really no, of course not. But it soured it in some way because it was a collision which was avoidable. But it wasn't deliberate, but it could have been avoidable. In my view, it was an avoidable incident, but, I don't have the data that race control has. The marshals would have seen it in a different way. They could have seen it. But from my perspective, what I thought it could have been avoidable. But, do let us know what you think, actually, because it's been an interesting reaction to social media. Sort of see who's been taking what position. Of course, Stevie Laird has come and said, yeah, terrible move by Eastwood. I think it was deliberate. See, I'm not going to come out and say it was deliberate because I don't think it was deliberate. Oh, God, he's waving. Right, what have you got to say then, Lester?
I'm just saying hello to Richard Randall, who's joined the show, and that was all.
Okay,
carry on.
We have a brief.
I don't expect a comment from Richard Randall about the touring car race because he's completely
you never
neutral,
know.
Of course. Well, he can do. He's more than welcome to chip in with his probably outrageous comments. But yeah, Stevie Laird says, as you rightly say, Dan Marr, terrible move by Eastwood, according to Stevie Laird. And I've just been having a quick flick through Dan's Twitter account, and he did say all of 9 hours ago that 4 races and 80 points still to go, all still to play for. Game on. And Dan Marr, you've already written him off. Oh,
I didn't write him off. Again, you're twisting my words, but that's not fair. I was suggesting that to potentially lose the championship in that way is what could sour it. You know, Dan Camish has always been ridiculously quick. I mean, was it 2013 or 2012 when out of the 24 races he entered, he won 24 races in the BRD, the British... It was still Formula 4 at the time, wasn't it? So
easy for you to
say. It was the old Formula 4 championship that he...
won every single race he was in.
The only excitement was the race for second, really, because he was just so dominant.
Some races, to be fair, some races he wasn't leading initially, but then led and won. But he's a massively quick driver. He's a brilliant talent, and you know I would love to see him out in Blancpain or something because I think he could do a good job, which is part of the reason he's gone over to Europe in the Porsche Super Cup to sort of prove what he can do. But we've seen this with Michael Meadows as well, who's staying in the Porsche Carrera Cup for a long time, won 2 or 3 championships, and then moved over to Blancpain with Audi and is doing fantastically over there. So the Porsche Carrera Cup GB Great Britain has always been a great proving ground for GT talent. And I think Charlie Eastwood's looking great. Dino Zamparelli's, when he's on it, he's properly on it. He's a very quick driver. And it'll be good to see what happens with those guys in the future. But of course, we've got Silverstone. We've got 2 races for them at Silverstone. They're not at Rockingham. So it's just Silverstone and Brands Hatch Grand Prix for the Porsche Carrera Cup. So we're only 4 races left to go. It's looking rather tasty, and it couldn't be different. But I don't have my calculator on me, so I can't do the points calculation.
No, it's okay. We'll let TSL do that for us.
But they won't. They haven't done the drop scores though.
Yeah, that's because it's too complicated to calculate, and if it's too complicated for the TSL to do on the fly, then it's definitely too complicated and boring for us to listen to Dan Marr try and be Carol Vorderman. No offence. But anyway, it's interesting, really interesting to see that a driver's mindset changes over 24 hours, having an understandable disappointing afternoon at Knockhill. Dan Camish said all of 24 hours ago, sad day, lost all faith in the system, even more disappointing that the entire race community sees something the stewards didn't. Fast forward to this morning, and he says 4 races and 80 points to go, all still to play for. Game on. So yeah, Dan's certainly had time to
14.
sleep on it. And what?
14 points is the gap with drop scores. But it's good to see that he sort of slept on it. Yeah. The thought anyway, not the points.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, I generally drop scores melt my brain. So I never a big fan.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I think it's a system that kind of rewards failure in a way. If you've had no retirements for the whole season, you're kind of punished for that. Whereas, you know, if you've at crucial times had a couple of retirements that you can drop, it kind of makes a mockery of it because the retirements could have been down to, you know, bad driving and things like that. I think it's an unnecessary system, really.
Well, tell us your thoughts if you're still tuned in live to us. Drop scores in the old Porsche Carrera Cup or not? There is obviously a fantastic reason for them doing it, and for the people who benefit from it, then that's a good thing for them. I have nothing else to say, to be honest.
That helps.
But yeah.
Stevie Laird's come back and said, Dan for James Cole's seat next year with a crying laughing emoji. Well, we have seen Dan trying to get into the touring cars before, so maybe he could, maybe he won't, we'll see. And then I think, harking back to the Roy Butcher comments we were making earlier, Matthew Foss come and said, I think Roy Butcher has proved he is good enough for the BTCC that he will go really far in his career, which I think, if he does stay in the BTCC from the end of the season into the next one, it could be an interesting one. But we'll have to sort of gauge what happens, where he goes with the rest of the season, and we'll wait until that happens. But it's looking rather interesting.
It certainly is, yes. And with that, I will we'll sort of wrap up the show with that. We're not doing a full 2 hours tonight because we've got other things to do. However, if you like two-wheeled stuff, like bikes, for example, then you might want to tune in tomorrow, because we're doing a live show again tomorrow evening, same time, live at 8, and it's the welcome return of a superbike show. Yes, we've sort of been flirting with it all season long, with dragging Kiko Alexander-Giles on the show to talk about BSB and MotoGP and such, and to pour over his thoughts. And for now, tomorrow, anyway, we want your thoughts. Have you been following the BSB Championship? Do you care too much about what happens in MotoGP or any of the support championships? Well, Kiko Alexander-Giles and myself, somehow, will be here tomorrow, live at 8, for a live superbike show. And we're not just talking about superbikes, we're talking MotoGP. It's just what the show's called, so don't freak out. So that's tomorrow, live at 8. And this weekend, we incredibly, unbelievably, have a live commentary. Yes, it's not the usual two-wheel stuff that we're doing on Motorsport Radio. However, we decided to go four wheels, and there's an epic 24-hour race happening this weekend. 24 hours, I didn't think what possibly could be. I mean, Le Mans already happened, and the 12-hour lawnmower race has already happened.
We've had Spa.
Spa's already happened, yeah. So what other 24-hour race could there possibly be? It's the 2CV 24-hour race, and they're at Snetterton this weekend, and Motorsport Media will be providing live radio coverage, online radio coverage of the event, and myself will be one of the lucky commentators. Yeah, lucky commentators. Dan Marr was one of the commentators last season, and you might think, if you've never seen a 2CV 24-hour race, you might think it a little strange. I urge you to at least tune in to us, because we'll try and provide as much visual coverage as possible. And it will be... Well, you were there last year, Dan Marr. So
yes.
Tell us about your sort of basic experience of what happened.
The 2CV 24 hours is one of the most fantastic spectacles you can ever go to watch. I loved it. I loved commentating on it last year, because you just can't believe, A, these things last for that long. They can do engine changes in about 15 minutes. So, if it does break, it can be repaired. Unlike a GT3 car, when the engine goes bang, you're done.
Are you literally calling 2CVs better than a GT3 car?
Only in terms of you can replace the engine with a spanner, a spanner pulling it off some rails and putting another one in quite quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
But it is the most fantastic thing to go and watch. It is relatively slow. They do hit about 70 miles an hour at their peak.
It's not all about speed, though. It's fantastic.
Mind you,
it's actually good racing.
It's fantastically close racing. You'll never ever see racing as close. I mean, bump drafting, but imagine NASCAR with the bump drafting and going side by side. But instead of it at 200 miles an hour, it's at 75. It's sort of...
If you're lucky.
But if you're lucky.
If the breeze is in the right way.
They have bigger straights there than they do at the Anglesey. Just last year at Anglesey, the weather was quite eccentric.
It was crap.
It started the race lovely and sunny, and then it started hailing at 9:30 in the morning, half an hour into the race, so I had to go and abandon going in the pit lane because it was very haily and I couldn't really stand up. I am only little, I do get blown around by the wind, but it is absolutely brilliant, and I really would suggest tuning into motorsport.radio this weekend to listen to and watch the live coverage of the 2017 Citroen 2CV race. They've got obviously what you would consider a normal 2CV, they will have Belgium and French rules 2CVs, which are, I believe, bike engine. They're BMW bike engine 2CV silhouettes. So they're basically bike engines. They look a bit like a 2CV with a standard 2CV windscreen and they can just go all hell out after that. And then they've got a couple of mini Mignias as well coming to join in the fun. 27 cars for this season's entry, which is one of the biggest ones they've had for quite a while. And with Snetterton 200 providing the circuit, it's going to be a fantastic spectacle. So I really would implore you go and listen or watch, or if you're lucky enough to go to Snetterton, you go trackside and listen to our wonderful commentary.
Certainly, yeah, and it's not only the motorsport.radio where you can tune in for your fine live coverage of this weekend's 2CV 24-hour race, sponsored by Liqui Moly, and which will be a fantastic race, Shaka Anderson. Don't laugh. Honestly, do check it out. Yeah, we will be working in conjunction with the Bark TV as well, streaming that live on there. There's loads of different places to get live coverage. But the main place, from my point of view, of course, is motorsport.radio. But I would say that, wouldn't I? Of course. Thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in live on the show for another Monday Motorsport. We'll be back again on Tuesday, i.e. tomorrow, if you're watching or listening to this live, for the Superbike Show with Kiko Alexander-Giles, and he will be no doubt bringing his massive soapbox with him, full of opinions. It is so full of opinions. It's going to be good. Yeah, I don't want to... Anyway. Yeah, Kiko. If anyone knows about Kiko's rants, they're pretty epic. Final comment then to Dan Marr.
We had a comment from Matty Ford not a little while ago saying, I think they should bring the Clio Cup to Knockhill.
Oh.
My simple answer is no. Their driving standards have been nothing short of abysmal this year. We've seen them flying at every circuit they've gone to, or at least on their roof at every circuit they've gone to. So I don't think that'll end well for the spectators.
Do you remember Toka 2, where you had the cheat mode, where I think they were called like bouncy cars, and you only had to literally just tap, and the car flew off into the distance? Maybe that's what I remember the original Toka on PS1, where you could get a tank to drive in the touring car field. I never saw that. And bomb other cars to make them flip over and retire. Wow. Always a good way to spend an afternoon. So we're literally likening 2017 Toka package to the madness and mayhem of cheat codes from Toka games of 20 years ago or so. That 20 years ago? God. I'm old. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in to Monday Motorsport. We'll be back again tomorrow for Tuesday Superbike Show, whatever it is. And we're because I will be absolutely dead after the 24-hour race. No show next week. Probably no show the week after, because I think something else is happening the week after that. I forgot.
Yeah, we'll be at Snetterton again for the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship, their penultimate meeting. Exactly, so there might actually be a show. Anyway, I'll keep you up to date. Not that there should be. Anyway. Yeah, but anyway, so thank you very much for getting in touch. And just because we're not live, if you're not tuned in to this live, doesn't mean you can't get involved and have your say in comments. Please do. In fact, join in the Facebook what was the live stream, or you can head to our website motorsport.radio and join up as a listener and get all the inside gossip from all the paddocks that we travel to. Dan McCarthy, thank you very much for coming on tonight's show once again. Thank you, Lester. And best of luck with all the future commentaries and stuff that you will be getting up to. What are you doing next on the commentary front? I'm going to London on Saturday to do a commentary for Hoffenheim v Werder Bremen for TalkSport International. Is that football? Yes. Oh, okay. Well done for that. TalkSport. Wow. Thanks. Blimey. Okay. Wow. He's like an Andy J here. And Dan Marr, thank you for coming on the show once again and talking touring cars and what's not. And you're more than welcome to come back. As I keep getting invited, so thank you very much. Then best of luck, Dan, for your TalkSport this coming weekend. I'll be sure to tune in. Cheers, well. Thank you, Dan. And thank you as well for also tuning in. And I've talked for enough time. And thank you. And do like and share and all that sort of stuff. Thank you, and good night.
This is Motorsport Radio.